how to design a legendary career, defining your relationship with money, and how to be yourself at work with one of the 13 most powerful women in startups, my friend, Wendy Sturgis. All right. Hey ho, let's go. Hello, my legendary friends. This is Christopher Lochhead, and man, am I ever glad that you are with us for this episode of Legends and Losers. We have an extraordinary guest today. Her name is Wendy Sturgis. Wendy and I have known each other for more time than certainly I want to admit. We worked together back in the go-go days of the internet. And no surprise, she has gone on to have a legendary career. And we have a wide-ranging conversation about how to have a career, how to be yourself at work, your relationship with money, and much more. I think you're going to love it. Now, if you're new to Legends and Losers, welcome. I hope you get addicted to the show. And what you need to know is that we're different. So we're what you could think of as an authentic dialogue show. And what that means is on a traditional show of any kind, really, what you experience is an interview paradigm. And in an interview paradigm, you typically have an accomplished human being who's been media trained, and they've been given their talking points, and they're out hawking their shit. And no matter what the interviewer asks, they answer one of the three talking points. And then you have a professional journalist or professional host. I am neither of those things. And that person typically has a prepared narrative, and the show's highly produced, and they feed you that narrative. And what you and I experience as listeners is really the collision of talking points and a prefabricated narrative. And look, you know, maybe I've just gotten, I don't know what it is, just annoyed at this. But for the most part, I find the typical interview show inauthentic and unsatisfying. And so the experience you have on Legends and Losers is not any of that. It's imagine two people sitting down over a coffee, a beer, or several shots of scotch, and just talking about business, life, and everything in between. And that's really Legends and Losers. So that's what you're going to experience today. And it's an amazing conversation with Wendy. If you're a longtime listener, thank you from the bottom of my whiskey-stained heart. I'm so glad that you continue to stay with us. And the other thing I wanted to thank our regular listeners for off the top of the show is thank you so much for sharing Legends and Losers. As you know, in spite of the popularity of podcasts are more popular than satellite radio, by way of example. And the average podcast listener consumes over 5 hours a week. So podcast listeners are deep into it. But that said, the average person in America, and frankly, rest of the world, has not experienced a podcast. And it actually can be pretty hard if you grab a smartphone and you're not used to it to find the podcast app, to look up a podcast, etc. So what's my point? Be a podcast legend. If you love podcasts, introduce two people you love to two podcasts you love. And even if you have to help them with their phone or their tablet or whatever it is and get them hooked up and get them subscribed, hopefully we're one of those two. But podcasts are the way to go. It's the place where authentic conversation can happen. And I think it's the most exciting, podcasting is the most exciting new medium out there. All right, Wendy Sturgis. Man, I love this gal. She's incredibly inspiring. She spent the last 20 plus years with an incredible career that spans across tech media and the internet space. She was a pioneer in the internet back in the mid to late 90s when we were doing Scient. Today, she's the chief customer officer at a red hot startup in New York called Yext, Y-E-X-T. And they are the emerging category queen in this area of digital knowledge management. She's held senior positions, not just at Scient back in the golden days, the olden days, back in the day. She's been at Oracle in senior positions. She was at Gartner, the research firm, Right Media, and she was also a senior executive at Yahoo. Today, she serves as the vice chair of the Step Up Women's Network. And she's on the board of dailyworth.com and Student Transport. She's been named one of the top 25 women in SaaS by the SaaS Report. She's on the Georgia Tech Advisory Board. She's been named one of the 13 most powerful women in startups by Business Insider. And Forbes says she's one of the 40 women over 40 to watch. And here she is, my friend, Wendy Sturgis.
I think you have to be honest with yourself if you want to make money, a lot of money, or you don't. I'm going to make a lot of fucking money. And that wasn't going to get it done. And so James came after me and I said, well, look, you're going to have to, I did the Jerry Maguire quote, period. I said, well, show me the money, because I knew that Oracle was going to be tough. And I knew it was not going to be a culture fit. I know the culture. I'd worked around it when I was at Price Waterhouse. I mean, it's notorious. But I said,
So
I'm up for
why were you so forthright about saying, hey, I want to make a lot of money, when a lot of people
I know.
are shy about that, or there are people, I grew up in a context of, A, you don't talk about money, and B, anybody who's got a lot of money must be crooked, right? And so I guess my point is, there's all this weird context that a lot of, I don't know about a lot, some of us have, and certainly being declarative about, hey, listen, Jimmy, if I'm going to come take this job, it's going to cost a lot of fucking money, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't say that shit, right? So what is it about you where you were able to lay it on the line and be declarative like that?
I'm sure a therapist could probably give me a lot of reasons. I've never done therapy, but I'm pretty self-aware.
Perfend, I'm Sigmund Freud.
Yeah. I mean, look, look, what I would say is I think it's important for people to understand their relationship to money. I think that we all have one, and for some people it's indulgence, and for other it's like a rush. It's like an addiction thing. For some people, it's money. To me, is security, and it's my security blanket, and I know that. I had a really, I mean, quickly on this, but my father and mother had to get married when I was 19, and they had no money. And when I say they had no money, I mean they had no money. My dad had to work 3 jobs to get through college. My mom had to drop out. And I had an interesting experience because there was no money, certainly until I was like 8 or 9. And, talking Kmart and eating Spam, and always loved, and great
Kmart,
family.
oh my.
I know. Can you imagine? I was wearing
Do you
Garanimals and
remember
all that shit. Yeah.
did you have this, I knew shit was gourmet when you could take the Kraft, we used to call it Kraft dinner in Canada, Kraft macaroni and cheese, and you were getting super ding dong gourmet when you could take extra slices of Velveeta and throw that shit on top of the powdered cheese.
The powdered
And
cheese.
then if you were going very ding dong gourmet,
Ooh.
you boiled the fucking hot dogs, and you cut that shit
Oh, you
up,
put that in?
and you
Yeah.
put that in there with the Kraft dinner. So
Yeah.
is that what we're talking about? Is that
Pretty
where?
much. Well, mine was more like when my dad was out of town, we're going to have pancake dinner. And I loved it, right? It was because, it's pancakes, like out of the box.
Pancakes for dinner.
Woohoo! But, and then, an amazing thing started to happen. My dad's in sales because he was young. By the time he hit 30, I'm 9 years old at that point, right? No, I'm 11.
He was
I'm
19
11.
when you were born.
He was 19 when I was born. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm 11. He's starting to get successful. And I think a lot of people, either you don't have money or you have it. I think it's unusual to have seen both sides of it by the time you're 18. And I wouldn't say we were super rich, but look, we moved to the right side of town so I could go to the best public high schools. A Mercedes showed up in the driveway, ski trips to Vail. So Christopher, I had that. Yeah. As
So you went
well
from
as,
nothing to Mercedes and Vail
yeah.
in a decade.
In a decade.
So
And that's
your old man put some, as we say in Canada, some serious fucking moose on the hood.
He did put some moose. He's an amazing, and the hard work. And my mom worked part-time, and that was where a lot of our fun money came from. And
What did you learn from that as a young person, sort of
yeah,
in what feels like poverty or certainly struggle
it's
over
definitely
that decade? And that
struggles.
was like, you were what, from what age to what age
Being
did this?
poor is just 0 to probably 9 or 10, right? I mean, there's just
Yeah, so you
always a
saw it happen in
struggle.
front of you.
Yeah, and then 9 to 18, it started to get better and better and better. I mean, I would tell you, I knew which way I liked a hell of a lot better. I mean, I was like, okay, that shit I didn't like, and I like that. It's like, and it's pretty simple. I guess that's where it comes from. Yeah. It's like, man, I like the veil. I like the nice car. I like not, you know what it was? It was that stress, Christopher. So much of that stress, it just, and this is why I'm so empathetic to working families. And I'm incredibly generous tipper because I know I've been there. I've seen when you're a mother trying to make money as a waitress to tips, I've seen that, and it's hard. It's really hard. And I just knew which way I liked better. I also, my mother, I will say, she and my dad married for 30 years and then they got a divorce. And she always likes to say our marriage didn't fail, it ended because they were so young when they got married, right? They were so young and they were together a long time. But I was also raised to say, she was so young, she didn't really have a choice because she didn't have a college degree and she was going to nursing school. And she always raised me to say, you need to have your own independence. And I don't think that everyone is raised that way, man, and certainly women in the South in the 70s and 80s. I mean,
And by independence, she meant financial independence,
yes,
career, money.
yes, money. And so I think as with all things, it goes back to how you're raised. And I also it's interesting because I went to Georgia Tech and I did it. A UVA guy was very pompous. And he said something very interesting to me. And I think this also is college. When people graduated, I didn't live in the dorm, but when you were in the dorm rooms as a senior, so you can imagine the people that were still living in the dorm rooms and the seniors, they were very smart, computer science, people put every one of their offer letters on their door of their dorm. Think about that for a minute.
Wow. Their
And
job offer letters.
their job offer letters. And I remember I had multiple job offers, even though remember I drank a lot of beer, but I had a real career path. And so my UVA boyfriend, he goes, this is so weird to me. You guys are openly talking about your job offers when you're 22 years old. And I go, and so I also think it started at Georgia Tech because it was so competitive and everybody's like, dude, what did you get? And people used it. And so I think when you also have that at such a young age where people put their offer letters on their dorm room doors.
And so you were just naturally competitive. That didn't seem strange to you. You wanted to know. You wanted to benchmark yourself against the other people.
Yeah.
And so what do you think about this world that we live in where we don't fucking keep score at T-ball and shit?
I mean, I think it's a problem. I'm really lucky because I have an incredible set of young people working with me and around me, and they inspire me every day. And I think we do an amazing job. So I defend kind of the younger generation because they are out there, the hard workers who bust their ass and are highly competitive, and they want to put results on the board. So we've cracked the code somehow in the recruiting, which I think is really amazing. So I just have to say that because I have incredibly young people working around me and with me, and it's amazing.
There's no getting away from them, is there?
No, it's done. And you and I, we're in that Gen X, like we're getting squeezed and we're just screwed. We're just fucked.
I actually, it's funny you say that because I have a lot of young people in my life as well, and a lot of millennials. And listen, I'll take a good whack at them when the opportunity presents itself. And it's a very important but. I have a lot of amazing young people in my life. And the interesting thing is, and I think a lot of them, if not all of them, realize this, given the reputation of their generation, the bar is so fucking low that the legendary ones can like kick some seriously intergalactic ass, right? Because if you're 24 years old and you're fucking killing it right now, you're the woe man or the man, so to speak.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think we as a society, that hard work, I was we're thinking about being a loser. I mean, I'm a terrible athlete. I'm athletic, but I'm a terrible athlete. And so there were no, like, oh, Wendy, you were like the shittiest softball player ever. I'd swing and miss. I could never hit the damn ball. Like, I don't need a friggin' trophy for that shit. I'm not a good softball player.
Have guessed that.
No, I'm super athletic. I'm super adventurous. I have terrible hand-eye coordination. I just played golf about a month ago with a big client in Charlotte. My contribution, Christopher, because I knew how bad I was, I bought a pack of 20 mulligans. And I did save the team. We did great because we had a lot of mulligans. So that was...
That's so okay. Golf is for wankers. It's
man, I'm so bad. I have terrible hand-eye coordination. So I just think, like, if you're not good at something, you're not good at it. It doesn't mean like good job. Go figure out what you're good at. Go find it, because we can't all be good at everything. And this whole, like, it's okay to be mediocre. You deserve a freaking trophy for it. It's just, not Like,
Not so much.
mm-mm.
So how long did you end up banging around with McKee at Oracle?
Not that long.
Yeah.
It was a real eye opener for me. Because I always, Christopher, I'm the tough chick. I went to college when I was at Georgia Tech. It was 4 guys to 1 girl. So I've always been one of the only women in the room. All my projects in college were, me and the guys. And Oracle is obviously incredibly male. Although I will say, when I was there, there was a female CMO, Judith, who's incredible, and Safra, who obviously Safra is one of the titans and just incredible.
A killer. Safra's a killer.
She's amazing. She's amazing. So there were 2 really strong women. And then the head of consulting was a woman named Eileen. And she was a great lady. So interestingly, you think about Oracle not being known for, being a happy place. There were
Cuddle,
3 really
cuddle.
extraordinary women there when I was there. But I just learned really quickly the culture, the people, how they roll, the backstabbing. It's unbelievable. The lack of care about clients, hitting numbers. I'd say borderline ethics, violate. Just questionable. And so I think that you need those because you need. And look, James did something incredibly important for me. He set a salary floor that I have never gone below again, and it was a 60% pay raise, Christopher. He did show me the money. Boy, did he show me the money. Right. And that was a floor that I knew was really where I wanted to always be. And so thanks to James, I've never gone below it. Even when I've joined a startup, I'm like, look, this is the floor and I can't live and go below that. And
so
yeah.
what advice would you have for other people because this is a hard thing for, I think, a lot of people to ask for the money, right?
Yeah.
So how did you develop that? What advice would you have for others about that? I'm very curious.
I mean, it's something that I talk to people and especially women about all the time. I mean, we know how much, and certainly if anyone who's in technology, I mean, these hours are not for the faint of heart, right? So I mean, it's just the reality. It's just one of the things I love about it. But this is not a, do kind of a job. And so I think you have to know the sacrifices that you're making. And I just think you're going to spend 60 hours a week. Know what you want to make and know what you're worth. And again, especially if people that know you are calling you and they know how damn good you are a fool. When it's a hiring manager who doesn't know you, then maybe they're like, well, you are this or this or this candidate. But I would say, especially if it is someone who knows you and you know that they want you and they believe that you can help them be successful, you are absolutely shooting yourself in the foot. You're fucking up if you don't go for it, especially when you know the level. I mean, you're not asking for $1 million if you are making 200,000 right now. So also you need to get educated. You need to know what your worth is. And I think you need to find people, and I tell everyone, but especially women, same thing, Christopher. My female friends and I talk about compensation. My best friends from Georgia Tech know exactly what I make. Think about that. They know what I make. And I think you have to have
why
that.
do you talk about that with your friends, in particular your
I think
gal
this is
friends?
the Georgia Tech thing. And we talk about our hopes and dreams. My best friend called me. She's a working mother of 3. I think she is a true superhuman because to raise 3 amazing kids, one's a walk-on in football at Georgia Tech, she got a promotion opportunity to become a vice president. She'd been a senior director for a long time. And we talked about it. And look, the comp it was like $40,000 and she was going to have to be away from her family a lot. And I said, no way. $40,000 after taxes, that's a lot of money. But for that sacrifice to not be the mother because you are trying to find this amazing balance, and I think you make it look easy, and I know how hard it is. And so, when you want to have professional women who can call you and say, what do you think? And she struggled, Christopher, because her ego, she wanted that VP title so badly. She wanted it so badly, and she was struggling. But I said to her, and I think she was surprised because I think she thought, hell yeah, $40,000, she should fucking do it. I was like, absolutely not.
Was 40 the comp or was 40 the raise?
Increase, the raise.
Yeah, okay. That's I was like, this can't be. In what company is a VP making 40?
No,
I'm like, you could be the VP of over there, and I'll be the VP of here. And no, okay, that makes
raise,
total sense,
right?
Yeah.
And so after taxes, it's
like, so what, right?
Yeah, I mean, is that worth that price? And so I think when you have really close friends, male or female, and I think quite frankly, you need to have a combination of both that you can be honest about. And I just think if you don't educate yourself, you don't have mentors. I have mentors now who've helped me a lot with understanding equity. and how to negotiate that. So I think you have to inform yourself. You have to have strong people that you feel comfortable. And you know what? If you don't feel talking to one of your closest business confidants or mentors about money, I think you're really going to have a hard time asking somebody to pay you something if you can't have a conversation with someone that you like and that you
It's really
hopefully
good
trust.
advice.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
getting comfortable with it, and understanding that and saying, hey, when I got my Yext offer and two others, I call them my board of advisors. Not every single one of them knew, but the handful of them knew every single part of my offer. And I told Yext, I said, look, I'm going to talk to people about these offers because I need advice. And so I think you need to also have that outside voice to say, whoa, 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 that's a really shitty offer. Or you know what, Christopher, that's a great offer. Don't negotiate more because they're paying you way above where I think the market value is. And sometimes it's not all about you need to always ask for more. Maybe you got a great offer and so you don't want to ask for it. James made me a great offer at Oracle. And I knew that. He made me a great offer and I took it, and I knew it was going to be hard. But I think what you then, as you get older, I think there's two things. And the other piece of advice I give people, know what's most important to you next. Is it the title? Is it the responsibility? Is it the role? Is it the money? And I think sometimes people don't talk about, I call it a means to an end job. And when it comes to financial, I just had a really dear friend of mine. And I said, this is a means to the end job. And she said, what does that mean? And I told her, and she called me the other day. She goes, damn, you were right. This is the means to an end job. I really don't like it. But it did things that she needed in her career, and the other jobs were not going to give it to her. And so I said, go into this eyes wide open, and know that. And so for me, Oracle was a means to an end to establish comp. And I learned a lot. I learned a shit ton about running a sales force, sales forecasting, the importance of that, because man, that place is a machine when it comes to managing their numbers. No, I will never take away anything from learning that. Seeing how a big engine, how Larry thinks about marketing, how they run their events, which is different than Dreamforce, but there's a lot of similarities. And then I realized I can't do this. I don't want to be here. This is not the right place for me. And then that forces you to say, hey, what do I want to go do next? And what's the most important thing to me?
I love it. I'm reminded of so much, Wendy. I love your wisdom. We had Doug Merritt on Legends and Losers. He's the chief executive of Splunk. And they're about 10 or 12 billion, something like that. I mean, huge market cap. And, I've known Doug for more years than he or I want to admit. But the interesting thing about Doug's career, it's a lot like yours in the sense that he took the right next job for him.
That's right.
And so he had become a CEO and then takes a non-CEO job and then becomes a CEO again and takes a non-CEO job and then another non-CEO job, and now he's a CEO. I might get it a little off, but if you look at it on paper, what the untrained idiot would say is, well, you've taken a step forward and a step back and a step forward, and he did that in sales. He's done it his whole career, and to your point, he was doing the kinds of wise things that you were doing, which is building his skill set, working with great people. In the case of your original motivation, hey, I need to get a goddamn job, right? And I need to rent my apartment, or like me and my new husband are fucking,
shit show. We like to say life picked us in the ass when we got back from our honeymoon.
Yeah, exactly. We'll garden for food or whatever. I don't know what plan B was going to be, but
so bad. Moved back to Charlotte and moved in the house that my mom lives in that I own. We got pretty close. We had about 2 weeks to run away. I was like, oh, North Carolina, here we come.
Here we come. You were going to be starring in what's the fuck is her name? Reese Witherspoon. What the fuck is her name? I don't know any of these celebrity retards, so I don't.
Sweet Home Alabama. I was going to do my own Carolina in my mind or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like moving back in with my mom at 35.
It was awesome. It was so touch and go. Oh my God! But the other thing,
it could have been called the boomerang couple or the boomerang daughter or something.
Well, the one thing I will say, if anybody, if anybody like thinks about it, if you go through that with your newlywed husband and you get through it, you're like, yeah, we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to make it.
Yeah, because your marriage got kicked in the balls kind of right out of
Oh
the
my,
chute, right?
it was, I mean, there's so much more. It was so bad. We ran from the towers collapsing in 9/11, just crazy shit. I mean, it was so crazy. So we're in a good place. So here's where it gets really interesting. I made a double F up because then I followed, someone who we know from Scient, and I was like, all right, well, what do I want to do? And I was like, I think it's time for me to go for the title. And I really have always the North Star for me, and I've always had a North Star. Does I want to be a COO or a president? Like a decent size company. Never. It was always like, I don't want to be a COO of like.
So you see yourself as a COO, not a CEO.
We're going to talk about that because I'm
okay,
changing.
good. Because I'm curious about that.
I'm starting to, I'm still at Yext and everything's good, but it's something. What is that, and what does that look like? And I am starting to ask myself that question. But for a very long time, it was always that's the North Star. And I don't want to run. I mean, you can be a COO of like the VP of the whatever. But I wanted
to be the COO of Legends and Losers if you want.
Exactly. And I work for.
It comes with a great T-shirt.
Yeah. But I was, hundreds of $1 million company or something like that. And so a friend called me, and again, what I also didn't do is, and I should have learned from Oracle, was like, yeah, well, I thought I wanted to do a smaller company and medium size, and I'll be the COO. Okay, same thing. Did not, and my gut was screaming at me, Christopher, screaming, do not take this job, do not take this job. And I fucking took the job, and it was bad.
This is with somebody that we both know from Scient. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he did not protect my ass. And
Really, that guy didn't protect you. Didn't do the right thing in the end.
No, did not.
Oh, I find that so fucking shocking.
Isn't that shocking?
That's what he does.
He ran for the hills.
You know who he cares about, right?
Oh yeah, big time. And he was like, "Yeah, Wendy's crazy. I don't know. I fucked up bringing her here. All this crap."
Oh yeah, Wendy's crazy. Yeah, my ass. Crazy.
So. So, and then there was also, without getting into it, some shenanigans there. So I was able to get a really nice exit. Leave it at that. Borderline, just things that, You know
what I appreciate about that? Because I know other executives who experience shenanigans and they just leave.
Yeah, but I got a nice package.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have liked more, and I called a couple of lawyers, and it's another really funny thing. They talked to me within 5 minutes. They go, honey, take that. You're not a suer. You're not someone, you're going to have an amazing career. Go do it. Get the fuck out and go. And it was great. The lawyers were like, no, you shouldn't do that. That's not you. We meet some women, or men, whoever, and that's not you. So then what it really forced me to do was to figure out. And so I did something, and I'll share this because I mentor a lot of people who really love it. I said I call them railroad tracks, and I set 4 railroad tracks that were extraordinarily different kinds of opportunities. Because I said, I got to get this shit right. I've got air cover now. I've got 9 months compensation, and I got to get it right. And so my railroad tracks, one was, Christopher, I was so like, what the hell? Maybe I should go be a COO of a non-for-profit, because I do care about that. And by the way, I got a job offer for a COO of a non-for-profit. And then I thought, all right, if I'm going to stay in consulting, you know what? I'm going to do badass consulting. I'm going to make my billable rate's going to be $1,000 an hour. So I don't know if like the Alex Partners of the world and stuff. They're really amazing.
Yeah. They're Alex they're the turnaround gurus, are they not?
And I love that.
That's a fucking cool company. Those guys. I read some shit about him years ago, and he gave me I guess you're allowed to say it. He gave me a boner about consulting, that guy, because that's a cool, at least it sounded cool.
No, and I liked that from Gartner and some of the other things I'd done. Even Oracle, I wasn't there that long, but I was transforming, and I did have an impact on the business. A guy that worked for me, Jason Blessing, is the CEO of Plex Systems. I have some really people I was really proud of that I had the chance to work with. Jason's a badass. But so I was like, all right, consulting.
You mean to tell me that people that you mentored have gone on to do legendary things? That's the thing that you think I'm going to find surprising? Is that what you're telling me?
I hope so, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
Of course, I don't find that.
Do.
Yeah, that's
what we're supposed to do.
I heard this great thing. We had Tony Chan on the show, and he's so great. If you haven't read his book, Good People, it's so incredible. Oh, my God. When I first heard the title, I thought, some happy horse shit, HR bullshit, and whatever. I'm going to hate it. Oh, my God. The guy is so unbelievable. But he talks about the power of character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean,
and
I
how
can't.
we hire for qualifications, not character.
Could not agree
And
more.
then on this leadership issue, he says, the job of a leader is not to create followers, but to create other leaders.
That's a great quote. That's a
Right?
great quote. Yeah, you should have. You
Oh,
should meet Jason. He's an impressive guy. So
I'd love to meet him.
yeah, he's really. I'm so proud of him. He's kicked ass at Plex as well. But so I was like, all right, that's a track. And so a guy named Steve Dede, who's a Georgia Tech guy, said, "Yep, you look amazing. Come in, interview." And it was like these plush carpets in Central Park South, and it was all hushed, and everyone's in their spreadsheets, and it was beautiful. And I thought, boy, that's not getting to my authentic me and where I see myself.
I'm working on a very, very wicked formula.
It was like beautiful and amazing work, and I was like, wow, billable rate like $1,000. Like, And then I thought to myself, I think this online advertising, there's something there. In my mind, I called it softwareization. And I had a buddy who worked for me at Pricewaterhouse. He was a senior consultant when I was a senior manager, and his name is Josh Berman, and he went on to be one of the founders of MySpace. And he founded Beachmint, which merged Lucky. He's an amazing guy. And he said, I called him and I said, I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. And he said, dude, come out to LA and let's talk about MySpace. And that's when, and this was in the height of MySpace, right? It was like super hot company and they partied a lot, dude. I think they might have given us a run for our money on the party.
Yeah, I think they did. They flamed out at least as fast and maybe faster than we did. So they had to be drinking more than us.
They had all the music stars.
Yeah, they would have had way better bands than us. We were talking to IT people.
Yeah, they had great parties. And Josh is an amazing guy. Everyone knows Chris and I forgot the other guy, Tom, but Josh was kind of like the quiet, deadly one who was.
Wasn't Tom the guy who was your first friend on?
Exactly.
He was everybody's first friend on MySpace. Exactly. Tom.
Yep. So those are the three. So everyone knows Krista Wolf and other people know Tom because he's your first friend. But Josh was kind of the third guy that no one really knows, who was the COO who kept the wheels on. And I went out and I started interviewing. And then I thought this and I was like, holy shit. So going back to Scient, the power of your network, Kurt Smith, who ran our media and entertainment sales on the East Coast. And I called Kurt and said, I'm looking for a job and I got to get this right. And he said, this guy's been calling me, this company, Right Media. And it's this really interesting online advertising company. And I think you should go talk to him. I was pretty far down the path with MySpace. So I thought, well, shit. And then again, being smart, I was like, well, hell, if I get 2 job offers in the space, then I'll be able to play them against each other. And hey,
now I'm on eBay.
And so I went in and wow, I mean, it's hard to convey how much it changed my life. This guy, Mike Walrath, who's the founder of Right Media, it was the most unbelievably innovative company. He and a guy named Ramsey McCrory. And again, this is the little thing. So they took the interview with me, but my resume, Christopher, did not read advertising, online advertising. They saw like Oracle. They're like, what? Like Oracle and Gartner. The Scient part a little bit, but we didn't really do advertising. And Ramsey had gone to graduate school at Georgia Tech and he'd come in on the red eye and I knew something was up. They said, well, we only had an hour scheduled for you, but can you stay a couple hours? I was like, hell yeah. And Ramsey, amazing, said, I want to meet her. She went to Tech. She must be smart. And they kicked my ass. I had Ramsey kicked my ass. He's an incredible character, really important person in my life. And they brought me back, I think 4 times. I had 22 interviews because I didn't,
22 fucking what else could you have talked about?
Well, but the one thing I will say, when I started, boy, I was set up, right? But they wanted everyone on my team to be bought in. It was a fascinating culture. It was a great culture. I mean, I love Scient, but this company changed my life. And once I started getting to the cycle, I was like, I have to work here. Like, this is my destiny. I have to work here. And they hired me and it was a huge.
How big was Right Media when you joined them?
It was right before we'd gotten our first investment from Yahoo. We probably had about 100 employees, 120. Because the thing about the exchange, you don't need lots of bodies. It was really technology, brilliant technology. And they a guy named Bill Wise, he's on my board of advisors. He said, I'm going to teach you everything about the business. Although he also hazed me and kicked my ass. It's a very interesting culture. It was a fun culture, a lot of partying too. Like Scient people would come around stuff and they're like, they said it feels a little bit like Scient. It was very young, very wicked smart, highly innovative. There was no double click exchange. Mike, not me. Mike and Brian and everyone created this notion of online advertising being sold through exchanges, which is, now the core of online advertising. And then when I realized, and this I think is such an important lesson, I liked working with marketers. I was like, oh my God, I found my people. Imagine that. You and I are talking, Christopher.
Really?
Marketers are the best. Marketers.
Maybe that's why we always liked each other.
Exactly. But I didn't know. I should have picked up on that a long time ago. And here I am 11 years later. I never felt like I had really close friends who were my clients. I have a ton now. I love my clients. I love
because you love being in marketing. You love being in media.
Creative. But I love that technology part of it. And I like being able to bring my core roots of it being a technologist with that marketing. And so I was not, I cannot take any credit for the huge success at Right Media. I got there towards the end, but what I will say is Mike, I will say what he tells me. He goes, dude, we were romper room. We needed some adult supervision. There was a lot going on.
How much was the company acquired for?
And publicly, it was actually a little bit more than this, but $950 million.
Yeah. Okay. So just under a Bilski.
Yeah. At the time, it was the biggest exit in New York City. Yep. Yep. And
man, I hope you had a lot of stock.
I call it a double. It was a double. It ended up being a double, which is pretty good. Sometimes I think people are shooting for the home runs. It's not a bad strategy to shoot for like 2 or 3 doubles, man, right?
Hey, man, you get a couple of doubles, a base hit, maybe a bunt every once in a while.
Exactly.
It rains out, but you were ahead when the game rained out. So you had that shit up. And
yeah. And then look, Yahoo changed my life. They ran as standalone for about another year and we loved it. And I love my clients. People like,
what years were you at Yahoo, Wendy?
07 to 011. So
the non-turmoil years.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what? I felt like I worked in Young and the Restless. It would be like, so
how many CEOs did you have over that time frame?
I had 1, 2, 3, 5.
Holy fucking fuck. Why did you stay through 5 fucking CEOs?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
And I also had 8 bosses. So it was really, but I will tell you, Yahoo was a little bit of a shit show, and all of that experience, that Oracle, the things I didn't like about Oracle, but you know what, Christopher, I learned a lot about discipline, and I operated a little bit like an Oracle person, which was not necessarily the norm at Yahoo. There were very good sales operators too, but there were not. Gartner, having that FP&A background and how I planned and forecasted, the consulting background, I had to take costs out of my organizations, which quite frankly, a lot of people just couldn't do. It's too hard for them. A lot of times they had built these organizations. I get it. I was like, all right, you need me to do it. And so they just kept promoting me. They kept giving me more and more. They were like, okay, we want you, what you did at Right Media. Can you come do that? I ran most of our publisher relationships in the US, which was huge because that's how the inventory, right? People don't realize half of, it's called TAC. Google just announced their TAC costs are going up, total cost of acquisition, the traffic acquisition cost. And half of Yahoo, when we delivered for our advertisers, was a non-Yahoo properties. So it's a huge network. And I ended up running that. And then
the purpose of that network is to deliver traffic where advertisers and marketers want it to go, right?
You do it on the search side, you can do it on the media side. And so I learned all about, so it was amazing, right? Right Media, we sat in the middle of all of the advertising, the networks, the data partners, the exchanges, the agencies. Then I went and learned the publisher side, truly, and how publishers think. And then I knew I needed to get a new job. I went to a domain fest. Oh yes, the domainers. And I was called the queen of the domainers. I knew that I needed to get a new job. I was like, okay.
When you were at Yahoo, you were called the queen of the domainers?
Yes, at a domainer conference, which the party was at the Playboy Mansion.
Now, you're going to kill me for this, but we're friends, right?
Yes.
So I can say this. Did you wear a dominatrix outfit?
Yeah, no, I've never played those cards, buddy. I never wanted to.
I'm just fucking with you. It was just too close to not say it. But
oh my God.
It's so funny in this environment today. It's like, can men and women in business say anything to each other anymore? Fuck.
Ridiculous. And anywhere, quite frankly. It's so crazy. Yeah. I just know I'm always like, oh God, I'm one misgaff away from saying something that's gonna totally screw me up.
But see, as a woman, you can fuck that up all the time and not get into trouble the way men would.
I guess it's probably true.
Although I do have a good gal friend who's a very successful executive. She runs I guess what you could think of as a business unit or a region for this company that's a big, successful company. And she told me this hysterical story. Her boss calls her in and says, we'll just call her Susie. Susie, I got to talk to you a little bit about your language. She says, you have to stop saying the C word at work.
She uses the C word. It's
The
not
C word. Now, I swear a lot, and I will say the C word, but in a work context, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah, and as a woman, that's probably not sending the right message to
Well, and as a man in business, like, ooh, terrible. Forget it. You can't.
Oh boy.
You're banished. Yes.
But
But I digress.
No. Well, and I do. I need to. My Alex is always saying, "Baby, you need to be careful. You need to be careful." I'm like, I know.
Has it ever gotten you in trouble?
No, I'm lucky. I mean, but I do need to be more conscious of it, because you get to a certain position. You're also a role model for people, and I think it's part of my identity. I come from a long family of salty-tongued people. But my mother.
But see, this is an interesting thing. So, how do you, in your head, juxtapose sort of being yourself and being authentic, and trying to be an executive at the same time?
I think it's hard. You have to, I think part of it is just knowing that you're going to have to find that balance, and you being aware of it. And I do know, and it's certainly when I'm in a public setting. I mean, we had our annual conference over the last 2 days. I was on stage, twice, one time for 40 minutes, one for 35. Like you just have to kind of turn the switch on. There are just times where I'm in a public company board. It's a very conservative. There's a lot of Canadian. I mean, they're Canadians. A lot of Canadians.
Oh, those fucking Canadians.
There's Canucks. But they're very conservative. I can't. Yeah, I can't. And so you just. When I'm around my team, like, I probably will let a few expletives fly because it's my leadership team and they know me really well. But you do have to know, and you have to have it under control. I like Carol. Carol was always very good to me, but that was a huge part of her persona. And I just didn't think of her as a woman that's what I wanted, was to be the salty tongued executive, right? Because that defined her. And I liked it. Look, at the time she was trying to say,
do you think it worked for her, or did it not work for her? Or how do you think that? Because I loved Carol for that, right?
Yeah, no, I think exactly. And she's incredible. She was always very, very, very good to me. Very, very pro women, amazing. I don't know. Look, we had a lot of shit going on. The place was just in flames, and I'm not always sure. Look, I liked it. Michael Arrington, when he was messing with her, I liked it because you got to defend your company. But an analyst calls when you're dropping. These analysts are making decisions about whether you're a company that they actually want to change their outlook on. I don't know. I'm not totally sure. But
she would drop F-bombs on earnings calls all the time, right?
Well, that's what. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it was no tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and everywhere.
What's she doing now? Do you know?
I don't know. I always thought maybe she'd do boards, but I haven't really seen her pop up. But good lady. Probably, as we've seen, Yahoo was a Titanic that was really hard to turn around. But I kept doing things that they liked. And then I said, after I got you're the queen of the domainers, and I worked for an amazing guy named Raymond Stern, who was the head of strategy and a bunch of things at Intuit for many years. He's an amazing guy. And he's like, all right, he incredibly got career development.
He was at Yahoo.
Yeah. Not for long. He wasn't like a long tenured guy, but a great guy. And I think the 7th of the 8 bosses that or the 6th of the 8 that I had. And he said, look, Hillary Snyder, who's another mentor, CEO of LifeLock, she said, she's got a role that she wants to talk to you about. And I was running half the sales force in the US. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Great opportunity. And when I came over, a lot of people in the sales team, these were really the rap that Yahoo has, is that all the people just sucked and that they were idiots, is just not really true. There was some extraordinary talent still when I was there. I can't say, what happened years after I was gone. A lot of people I knew left. And there was a lot of top talent, and apparently like 22 people wanted the job. It was a big job. I didn't even really want it. There was another job that was more creative that I wanted. And Hillary said, Wendy, this is the job, and it's 1,200 people, and I need you to help me. We've got to get the cost aligned, and there's a lot of things we need to do. Part of that, I ran the paid search business and the Microsoft Alliance. So I worked with Chi Lu and all of the Microsoft people, and that was an incredible opportunity. Chi is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person and someone I respect deeply. And then I worked for Ross Levinson. And so I worked for Hillary and I worked for Ross, and they were both amazing executives who in that role really taught me kind of that next level of becoming an executive. And then just, sitting at the table, working on
And
a
what
one.
was that next level? What was it? What is that to be a next level executive to
Well,
play with those guys,
yeah, I mean
those
the
gals?
numbers, you start adding a lot more zeros, and right. But I think that I think one of the biggest things I've had to work on as a leader, because I am such a bulldozer. I mean, it's true. Is you can't bulldoze your way through things when you're running an organization with billions in it, right? You have to find the right leadership team and find the right ways to set the right direction and the right strategic direction, not just direction, strategic direction. And I'm so proud of my management team. I let, there were like 14 vice presidents reporting to me, and each of them had a half of a job that wasn't a real job, to this point about being the VP of the garbage, the janitor closet. It was like stupid. So I got rid of them. There was some integrity and other things that I was like, I can't have this on my team. And my team that stayed, one of them, Rob Wilk, runs all search business at Microsoft. Got Todd Porches over in London working for Comcast. They were amazing guys and girls. And I got it right. And they each had real jobs. And I said, we together worked in a great strategic direction. And I learned a lot about how do you move that needle. And it's a little bit like you were talking about going to the holiday party. A lot of it, I realized people, their leaders had never come to their offices to spend time with them. These are like the 101 that you're always like, really?
That was the thing I always found as I was in high positions in bigger companies, that in some ways it was easy. It's like, well, you go on a sales call with a customer and you don't say stupid shit, and you show curiosity and interest in that customer, and everybody thinks you were awesome. Like, well, that's not that fucking hard. And then you go to the Australian office and you land there and you have lunch with the office manager,
yeah.
or the regional VP or whatever the fuck they're called. And you hang out with people and you do some meets and greets and a lunch and learn and some one-on-one. Like, it's just not, and you try to listen a little and, be
maybe
a human
you get
being.
some good feedback, and maybe you get some good feedback, like, holy shit. Like, so I did that, and I went to India. I had 200, 300 people working for me in India. We had a great team sitting next to our technologists that were in India. Their leaders had never come to India to see them. Can you imagine? Had never come to India. Their direct leader had never come. And
there's nothing important happening in technology in India, so
India,
no need to go there.
No. And we were what? And by the way, I'd never been to India, and it was amazing.
Were you in Bangalore or where were you?
I was in Bangalore and Mumbai, and I have an amazing client who was a publisher client, and he flew me around in his private plane. He took me to Goa, which was amazing. We did all the crazy stuff in Goa. It was amazing. I loved it. I love Indian people, their culture,
the food. I like. I had
food.
this expression: you can't be in a bad mood when you're eating Indian food.
No. And they're just so positive. Their smile. They're very much like the kind of culture that I love. Anyways, I loved it. So and I think I learned the power of that, which just seems so obvious, but I think now I know it, right? Because I kind of just did it. And then I realized, like, they were all like, oh my God, Wendy came to our office and she spent 2 days with us. And I had one-on-ones with all people above a certain level and blah, blah, blah. And I had to lay a lot of people off, Christopher. But you know what? I felt terrible about it, and it never stops hurting. But I knew what I felt great about. The people who stayed behind had much better jobs, and they all told me that. They all had more responsibility. They had more job satisfaction. Believe it or not, we had never done a segmentation exercise, and never. So
segmented by
like total value to the company. So imagine having an account management organization that every client's treated the same. This is a situation.
So we'd never said, here are stars, and here are up and comers, and here are solid day in and day outs, and here are we're not sure's, and here are losers.
Well, but this was more on the client side. So
on the client side.
So Procter & Gamble was getting the same level of service as, an amazing little small e-commerce retail site, who was great, but they got the same level of service. So and sales team was really freaked out, like, what is she doing? And so then I did segment the people. So then the rock stars were on P&G. They spent $100 million, whatever it was at the time. It was many tens of millions. Walmart.
Really? You think it's a good management practice To put our best people on our best
Our biggest
customers. Is
accounts.
that?
It's radical. I told you, Yahoo had
Radical.
we had some, I looked like, my mother was like, honey, you're just kicking ass there. And I was like, Mom, don't let it think that I'm like some genius. It really, some of these things are.
We're going to put our best people on our best customers.
And make sure they have less customers to support. Like, wow, P&G.
Maybe just focus on that one, huh?
Yeah. So then imagine people had better job satisfaction. They saw more of their impact. The sales team ended up being like, hurrah. And and then look, it was time to go. But they were very, very good to me. And I really like the culture, Christopher. Think about coming off the bookend of 2 back-to-back, kind of not so great. Yahoo, I mean, it had that smiley face, and the Yahoo, that permeated. That was Jerry and David, who I got to know a little bit, both really quality human beings. And I just, after what I'd gone through, I really appreciated that the culture was so wonderful. And I love my colleagues, and my customers, they were all rooting for us. We would come and see them, every quarter and they'd say, can you guys please get it together? We don't want to give more money to Google. It's not that they hate Google. They're seeing this concentration. Imagine this
enough, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is 7 years ago, so I can only imagine like what they're saying now. But now it's because then it was Facebook was coming up, so now it's the duopoly to some very vast extent. But so they were rooting for us, and so you felt that for your customers. They really tried to work with us. They wanted to give us more money. And so for all those reasons, I loved it. And then I knew it was time to go because I just was tired of the soap opera. The Young and the Restless had gotten a little too, dramatic.
And so then what happens to our heroine?
Our heroine. So kind of back to my tracks mentality. I didn't have to do as much of. I didn't want to go do something else other than advertising because I was so happy now working with marketers. And so I had kind of a profile, and luckily because of Right Media, I know a lot of people in ad tech here. So many people had relationships with Right Media. They had seats on the exchange. Amazing leaders like Joe Zawadzki of Media Math, who's just one of my favorite people in the world and in the industry. And so I kind of stuck my head up. I will tell you a funny story. I had a boss. The huge annual advertising conference is called the Cannes Lions, and I was invited. I was at that level, and so I had a meeting with my boss, not Ross, by the way, and it was a good man. And I said, I want to have a role, and like right now, I'm just kind of going. I can be the blonde on the yacht. Yahoo always had a yacht at the time, but I'm really fond of parties, but I'd kind of like a role. And he actually. It's like, I don't want to
be the blonde on the yacht.
I could be, I have like cute dresses and clients like me, but I want to, I know we're having a meet with Maurice Levy, the CEO of Publicis, so can I be in that meeting? And he actually uninvited me. He said, that's a good point. I don't think, he named another executive, someone else I respect. He goes, they're doing a lot of these meetings this year. I think this should be his year, and then you can come next year. So when I quit, I said,
what was it about what you said that got you disinvited?
I don't know. He's the sweetest man in the world, but clueless. I don't know. I was like, dude, like you don't uninvite me when I'm coming to you to say, let's figure out. And by the way, I ran the entire search business. Like I talked to Microsoft executives once a month at our monthly reviews. Are there any clients that want to know more about what's happening in search, or my account management team? Yahoo is not the easiest company to do business with. And then the guy who was supposedly the executive, he was bitching the whole time because he's like, Wendy should have been here. And these meetings, I don't know, I guess he was an old school media guy. I think he just didn't know, like, you can have 2 executives in the room and it doesn't take away from, I don't know, Christopher. It was effed up. So that was kind of the sign to me, like, I got to go. Like, I can't work in this environment. So when I quit, I can be kind of mean-spirited a little bit. I said, it was amazing. You guys were all in the south of France, and I just kind of called a couple of people and I had a few meetings, and then I had like 4 job offers while you were partying in the yacht. Exactly. I was like, Mama was getting another job because fuck you. So I mean,
so I just want to make sure I completely get this. So there were no women on the yacht.
Well, like there were other women on the yacht.
There were no executives at the company on the yacht who were female. There might have been women on the yacht.
No, I think like my friend Molly Spillman, who's the president of Criteo. Molly would have been there because she was the CMO.
Okay, so it wasn't like a female fuck you thing.
I don't think so. You know what? My mind.
It was more of a Wendy fuck you thing.
Or I know he liked me. He gave me really big raises. That's the thing. When you work for a media executive, they know how to pay people to this point about having to ask. He just like gave me a huge raise. So that was nice, I guess. He liked me. I really do think he liked me. He gave me a huge raise with that, like a few months before. I just think he was old school and somehow in his mind, things were single threaded, like they couldn't run in parallel. I don't know. I don't think we can try to figure. I don't think he's working now. I think he's retired. So
But
he's out to pasture.
no matter what, for Wendy, it was time to get.
It was time to get the hell out. But sometimes you need a kick in the ass, because I was comfortable and I liked the people I worked with and all the things I've said. And so I went out to the people I knew and trusted. And Mike Walrath, the founder and CEO of Right Media, is the chairman of the board of Yext. And he said, look, it's his company. He's one of the first people I called. I had lunch with him. Bill Wise, another person I called. Bill connected me for a CEO position. And then I called a couple of other CEOs of companies. And within a month, I had a president role. It was down to me and another person for a CEO role. And there was the Yext role. And it was to come in and really build the revenue division with one of the founders. And it was the smallest company, the highest risk, probably one of the smaller titles, because the others were like president and da-da-da-da, to your story about the gentleman who it didn't make sense. And I just fell in love. I liked the market opportunity. I think I learned this a little bit from Scient, Christopher. Sometimes you need macro trends as well. You can have a great idea. The video in 2001, there were no macro trends, and now we've got
that pure rock up that pure hill is always tough. If there's at least a little wind up your backside pushing the rock up the hill.
Yeah, and I liked it because I was running that paid search business and really just sitting across all the Yahoo properties. We had these amazing data scientists, and we did see a lot of what was happening. We talked a lot about consumer, and matching that up with advertisers, and so I was able to see a pretty huge sets of data about consumer intent and what was happening in mobile and local. And so I had a little bit of a window seat, so I could see and understand what was happening. And what I found out, Christopher, it's about the culture fit. And after, again, what I'd been through, and Howard and Brian are two of the most extraordinary human beings. Their character is off the charts. They're unbelievable human beings. I consider them both to be just like brothers. Their family, 6.5 years in, and then our head of engineering and COO at the time, Tom Dixon, is a genius, and I think he is truly the greatest tech talent that I will maybe ever work for. And I said, okay, I like the macro trends. I liked the deep ambition. They wanted to have an IPO and they want to be $1 billion revenue, not valued company. And they said
You're
that
$1 billion
to me.
market cap company now, are you
Yes.
not?
Yeah. But they said we want to be $1 billion valued, but we also, we want to be the biggest tech company in New York City.
And what's the bookings run rate publicly announced?
Publicly announced. Oh, you know what? I better pass because I don't know exactly.
Don't say anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you can, it's all publicly disclosed. It's a lot. It's not 40 million or anything like that.
No. You can't have $1 billion market cap on.
Well,
I guess you can. If you roll the right fatty, you can have a $20 billion market cap, no customers and no revenue, and ta-da.
Exactly. And so I liked the macro. I liked the endemic. I liked the fact that the space wasn't crowded. A lot of things I was looking at were like video and other things, which I always love, and they're sexier maybe than local and what we were doing, but it wasn't crowded, maybe because it's not as sexy, but it solved a real business problem. And those are sexy, right?
And what's the real business? How would you describe Yext's problem?
With the rise of mobile and moving away from desktop and frankly, the yellow pages, right, which is how people used to, and that's obviously been evolving for a while. How do consumers find businesses they want to transact with? Period, right? Like, how do I discover, and especially if you think about advertising, we talk about this a lot with our OEMs, you're pumping, I don't know, you're even a smaller brand, it's crazy, a Honda in the US will put 750 million into the top. So what's the point of that? To convert a new customer in many cases. Now, of course, they want repeat customers. But wait, if I'm a Honda, you're advertising that you put in the top of that funnel, you're trying to convert me. Maybe I don't know where I have no idea where the nearest Honda dealer in New York is. I have no idea. Do I have to go to New Jersey? Right. Maybe I want to go to New Jersey because my mom lives out there and I want to service the car and drop it off. Then I got to go find that Honda dealer. Where am I going to look? I'm going to go on my phone. Period. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that problem, and we had one of those infamous pivots where we were solving another business problem, and the business is just driving leads, click to call. And this is right before I got here, and Howard and Brian, everyone that was the founder, said, they were the two founders and another guy, Brett, and they said, it's great you're driving me leads from these local, but why is my phone number wrong? Why are my hours wrong? Why is my map marker wrong? And people are complaining every time they come in because they're driving around the block, and how many customers am I losing because they're pissed off? And so they really pushed all the venture capital chips in the middle of the table and said, we think that's a more interesting, better, bigger opportunity problem to solve. And they were right. And that's what we've done. Yeah.
So it's interesting how the company ultimately found its new category by thrashing around in the sort of, if you will, by failing in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, Christopher, because for a lot of people, they were doing about 40 million in revenue, and that's a public number that we share in that business. So it was pretty good, but they just didn't think they could grow it, and they were right about that. Yeah, they didn't think we can get this to $1 billion market cap, and crowded space with PPC, click to calls. It's like it's the bottom of the funnel. It's not enterprise level, and so
how do you think about the category going forward? How would you describe what it's going to be in 2 to 5 years?
It's so friggin' cool. One of the other hypotheses that we had that we've gotten, again, you do have to be lucky, and Howard says that. You can be right, but you also need to be lucky, is how much this has evolved. So think about it. There was no Apple Maps like 4.5 years ago. There's no Apple Maps, right? And so that's expanded this problem because advertisers, hell yeah, they want to have their pen drops in Apple Maps, right? Any business that has a physical location, that's important. We're now seeing the rise of Uber, and people get pissed off. They want their pen drops and all that information to be right.
And what about things like Waze?
Well, that's Waze as well, and that's part of Google. And we have our relation, are part of the open API. We're able to control all the data. But here's what gets really exciting. Voice search. It's been a long week.
I was going to say, what's the voice church?
Church, you might be a member of the voice church.
I might be a member. I might be a preacher in the voice church.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And so we call it the rise of intelligent services. And in this underlying need, Google, we had one of their product managers for Google Assistant yesterday we had our annual conference for the last 2 days called Onward, and she talked about structured data is at the heart of any of these intelligent services. So it's going to be the rise of chatbots, voice search. So we're going to build off of mapping, and mapping is evolving incredibly quickly. We had an amazing mapping panel where we had people from, I think maybe Google or Waze and Cortana, all of these people that are doing mapping and voice search. And so what is the core is you have to have your data, and it has to be accessible and available for these intelligent services to have the accurate information and to serve up in chatbots. You have to give it to them. And so that's really the next evolution, is moving into how we help our customers be ready for intelligent services.
So you want to make sure that whatever your customers want to put in front of people, through those new technologies, that the right information, the right data gets to them.
Exactly. And by the way,
you call them intelligent services.
Yeah, and you won't get found if you don't. It's not even that the data's wrong. If you don't give it to them, or it's discoverable in some cases, you won't even show up in voice search, right? You won't even show up. So it's being.
So when I say Chinese restaurant in Santa Cruz, you're not there.
You're not there. And best Chinese, or Chinese, I want Chinese with the best, egg drop soup. And then if you don't have your menus and your ratings managed and all of that, because it all plays into it. Yep.
Interesting. It's pretty. So let me test this on you. So I think one of the biggest things that we've got, that we're at the beginning of, and obviously we've seen it in consumer, and we're now just at the very beginning of it in enterprise, is a shift from applications that you and I as users do a lot for, and they do very little for us, to applications that we do very little for and with, and they give us a lot, right? So the difference between a sales forecast and how much work you'd have to do to make that work if you were a salesperson or a sales manager, and the ability to say, Alexa, pizza in Santa Cruz. Right.
Exactly.
So that's is that the shift that you see happening?
Yes, absolutely. And when you hear Google, and look, Google will be a juggernaut in the space just by the nature of the data they already have, right? Because the key to AI is going to be data, right? And the troves that they have on all of us are going to, certainly they may not be the winner, but they will be at the table as one of the winners. I have no doubt about that. And they were talking about this yesterday in some of the scenarios. So I think they would agree with you, because that was a little bit of the theme, because Google Assistant just got launched. I mean, I think in the last couple of months. You should check it out. They have a lot of resources, and they want to make it really
I don't want any of these fucking listening things in my house.
You do not? I don't have one yet, which I need to get one because I need to understand how it works. Yeah, I know. I can see.
You might need to, but I just look at it and go, wait a minute. One of the largest companies in the world is going to have something in my house that listens to every fucking thing I say. That sounds like a very bad fucking idea.
I know. And then we're getting into like, what was the movie with Tom Cruise, the police, some forecasting.
Oh, it's totally 1984. Right. And then the other thing, I'm sure you saw this recently, Amazon, I guess, is beta testing some technology now there where you can allow the Amazon delivery person to put the shit in your house.
Oh my God. No.
So it's like, okay, so now they listen to everything in your house and they can come into your fucking house and like, sooner or later they're going to be like, taking care of you in the sack. Like, wow, I got this Amazon peripheral and it gives me a cuddle in bed after a scotch or two. And it's very handy when my wife's on the road. I don't know what the fuck else are they going to try to do to us. I have no idea. But I digress. I don't know. Sometimes my external monologue goes my internal monologue goes external. So you're sitting at the forefront of all this stuff, though. That's the cool part, right?
It's really cool, yeah.
And you're brand newly public, and the whole world is watching you. Yep. And you're on every list. Do you know that? Do you know you're on every fucking list? I get a LinkedIn tells me every day, oh, Wendy's now on this list and that list. And there was one. Let me just pull it up. That there was one that I wanted to ask you about because I wondered what you thought about it. It had something to do with like, okay, so you've been on the 13 powerful women running today's biggest startups list. That's Business Insider.
Yep.
You were one of the top 25 leaders in SaaS.
Yep.
But you were on some other list like good-looking women in New York tech or something like that.
No,
it had to do with you were no you were.
No, no one has ever told me that. That's not true.
No. I saw it because I wanted to. I didn't save it because I thought, how does that?
Just add me to some list, buddy. I don't know about that.
No. I'm gonna make this shit up. I saw you. Yes, here it is.
What? Forbes.
This is from 2013. Hold on, they serve up 4,000 pages of ads.
Yeah, they do.
You are one of the 15 hottest women in tech.
Somehow I missed that one.
According to a Forbes stat, so the headline says the 15 hottest women in tech who were not, who were not hot enough for Complex's 40th hottest women in tech list. So you didn't make one list, so you're on another. That's what this says.
This is like that sucks. But bullshit. Well, that's what I don't like.
Well, it still means you're. List. Yeah, but you'd still, if you take 40 and 15 and put them together, you're still one of the 55 hottest women in tech, depending on how you want to look at it. Oh, hey, and you're number 6 on the didn't make it 15 list.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you are.
Ridiculous. Well, here's what I say.
So what do you think about all this stuff? I will tell you, right?
I have a very clear opinion on this. I think that that it's being part of your authentic self. If you like being fashionable, being feminine, being an attractive woman, which I've never like shied away from. I don't wear like low cut tops and mini skirts or anything with like towering heels, but I think that it is I think it depends on how the list is presented and how it is shaped. But to be an example, I'd say forget the list, but I do say to
nobody put me on the 10 hottest podcasting list.
I'll work on that for you, buddy. But I think, look, I would say, I don't want to be objectified, but I think owning your identity, and if you are attractive, not having to apologize for that. I think it says, I want young women and girls to know that technology is the most fucking kick-ass field. It is so awesome. And I don't want them to think that they have to be in a nerd in some room coding and sweatpants with a bunch of guys. If you want to do that, freaking awesome too. But if you don't, which a lot of people, men and women don't, but certainly women, I want women to know that you can be stylish, you can be confident, you can be sophisticated, you can be attractive, you can be feminine, you can own your identity and still be very successful. And so I don't know about list or whatever, but I do talk to a lot of women. I mean, I have young women ask me, should I not wear makeup to work? I have gorgeous women who worry. And I say, if that's the world we live in, that you feel that's a choice you have to make, then I'm very sad, right? Like, I think you should own being a beautiful person inside and out, or whatever you are. So I don't know. I probably have a little bit of a different view, but I think it is important for young women to see all kinds of women successful in tech, to know that you can be cool and confident.
Yeah, amen, hallelujah. And this craziness now, like I've been hearing this one. I don't know if you've been hearing this one, that there are some men now who have been, given all the stuff that's gone on in the last 3 to 6 months or so, they won't meet with a woman in business one-on-one.
It's so terrible, Christopher. This will
Is that really happening? I mean, I'm not in the game anymore.
I don't know. This is the first time I'm hearing this. I don't know. I think New Yorkers are probably like, yeah, fuck you. Like, it's just like, we're not going to do that. But think about, as we've talked to the story, think about how many times I brought up men's names. Bill Wise, Mike. I've had lunch with Mike. I said I went to have lunch with Mike to talk about my next move from Yahoo. When I wanted to make my decision on Yext, I called Bill, and I think I just saw Bill for lunch. If I can't have lunch or be with the men who have an impact in my career, I mean, my career absolutely will suffer. I just outlined.
Well, and listen, I would say to you the same thing for me in my career with women, because I had a lot of women make a difference in my career, a lot.
Yeah.
And so let me just circle back with you on this one, though, because I find it interesting. My memory of you is exactly as the way you described yourself. That is to say, you were feminine at work. You clearly dressed like a gal who liked to dress like a gal and be feminine and all that, and the shoes and the whatever the fuck. And you and Darcy and Wendy and all the gals would talk about the new fucking whatever it was, or the hand. I don't know what it was, stuff that you guys get into. And yet, to your point, never low cut. Never. I don't remember you ever looking at you and ever thinking, "Oh God, Wendy, why the fuck are you wearing that?" or any of that. And even more importantly than any sort of a presentation kind of a thing, you never gave off that vibe.
That's right.
I think for us to be taken seriously in business, we have to give off a serious vibe, if you will, right?
Exactly.
There was no question you were a serious person. There's no question that when you came in with the reports on, how, whatever the fuck it was, the revenue and the new hires or whatever it was, like you had your shit together and you were going to take us through some shit. And like, this was a fucking somebody coming in here to lay down some shit, right? And get some work done. And if you had the new product, I don't know what, and you were just, and so I guess that's the interesting thing now with all this stuff that's come out. Because to me, on one hand, there's the male bad behavior that is either very bad or criminal. That's to me in a bucket over here, and we can talk about that stuff if you want. To me, but that stuff to me is, I think, easier to understand in terms of how to deal with it. It's the stuff that you're talking about. Who teaches a young man how to be a man at work and be a good man at work, and who teaches a young woman to be a woman at work and a good woman at work, and how to handle herself and how men should handle them. Like, where the fuck do we go to the Wendy school that says, you know what? Yeah, wear makeup and have this great hair that you always had and the shoes and the whatever the fuck, right? And be yourself.
Be yourself, exactly.
But I never saw, you tell me, did anybody ever not take you seriously as an executive?
No, never. And I think what's really amazing, and Christopher, the one thing I will just touch on, I've actually racked my brain to say, did I block anything out? Did anyone ever cross a line with me? And I mean, Christopher, I know how lucky I am. No one ever did. And my husband laughs. He goes, yeah, because they knew you'd kick them in the balls if they tried to do anything. But it is, and I don't want to say that any of these women deserved anything, right? That's not what you or I are saying. But I
I
mean,
am way not saying that.
well, no, you're
And
not.
I'm
I'm
also
not.
not saying there aren't a shit ton of men who behave like
Well,
complete
just pigs. No.
assholes, right?
Well, and my husband is because he has four sisters. He's the
And
only
I'm
boy
not saying
in his
I was perfect either, by the way.
no, but well, in Scient we had a good culture. I mean, and look, we had a lot of young people. That's different. Young people are going to do what they're going to do when they're together, but that's not harassment in any way. But no, I mean, it's very personal to my husband because he's the only boy and four sisters, right? So he was raised in a household of females. So we've talked about it a lot. And I say, I've racked my brain. Did I block anything out? And I've been super lucky. And I do think it is, being conscious about this, but I don't know. And it's a good question. It's something I hadn't thought about before, Christopher. I need to think about how I can help in that. The one thing that I will say is funny though, and it's another thing when I mentor a lot of New York women, especially, and this is a female conversation that some of them don't like. I'll be honest, and I'm honest with them about, look, you have to be authentic to yourself. But even though I've always been feminine, and I'm a girl's girl, I was in a sorority, and I have so many girlfriends. I'm not one of those girls who's like, oh, I'm a guy's girl and I don't have any girlfriends. Like, I'm a chick girl too. And Wendy Jones, you saw that at Scient. But I'm a guy's girl, and I know as much about college football and basketball as probably, a lot of people who maybe do it for a living. Like, I'm up there, my husband and we are, and I think it gives me an ability to connect and to have a social norm with people who maybe don't want to talk about Prada shoes or that handbag or whatever, which I can also do. And I do talk to women about this, and I say, look, and if you don't like sports, you don't like sports. And I'm like, I love sports, so I don't know why you like, find a sport you like. I don't know if it's soccer or World Cup or women's soccer or hockey. Like, find something. But if you really can't,
Curling. It's time for
course,
curling to get
curling, of
big.
course. Maybe that could be a sport women like, but or men, who knows? But find a way to connect. Maybe it says being a parent with a lot of the people around the table that are different than you. But I think human nature, if you don't have that ability to find that connection with people, and maybe it's a male female thing, but it is what it is. And if you are different, then you got to find a way to connect with people. For me, I was able to do it through sports.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I didn't graduate high school.
Yes.
And, there's a lot of things that I have felt like an alien about and disconnected from people. But the flip side is, when you work and you travel and you deal with people from all sorts of cultures and so forth and so on, it's actually not that hard to find a place to connect.
Exactly. You just have to look for it. Yeah.
My father-in-law, Phil, is an 86-year-old Italian introvert. And he's a farmer. Well, fucking A, we could have less in common
Yeah.
on paper, right? But
Yeah.
the reality is we have a ton in common. And I knew I needed to come to him, and I knew I also needed to give him time. And we found a way. And now it's, and it has been for quite some time, but we have a very powerful relationship. And so, yeah, I agree. Now, there is one thing about this I'm curious to ask you, because this is, I think, something that is in some ways all this stuff about men and women in the workplace that's been coming out and the illegal behavior of some of these men. In some ways, it's making it a little harder, I think, to talk about some of this stuff because everybody's really, doesn't want to get smashed in some conversation, right, by saying something or whatever. Anyway, all that said, my experience is that many businesses are more masculine than feminine. There are a lot of businesses that are not masculine, but in the corporate world that you and I have lived in, would you find it safe to say that those businesses feel more masculine?
Of course. Yes. I don't think that's a radical concept.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the fuck, you got.
Yeah. No.
So,
yeah.
So then the successful women that I have known, like you, to your point on connecting, and in your case, sports as part of it, but I actually think it's got a lot to do with who you are, and the sports thing is a bonus. But anyway, that said, I'm curious, Wendy, your perspective, if a lot of businesses have a masculine quality, they're male sort of more DNA, if I can say it that way,
Mm-hmm.
then how do you think about being in that kind of an organization?
I could probably think about that question for a long time and come up with a lot of different answers. Well, I can certainly think about, I would say my college is incredibly masculine, right? So, I've been around this. It's an engineering school in the very nature of that, and we're working on our diversity, but it's not where it needs to be. We've made progress. I think then it's a really tough one. I'd say there's three things. I think understanding that whether it's a masculine or a feminine company, if it's profit oriented, that if you focus on your results, right, what can you control? What can you control, right? Whether you fit in or it feels more masculine, but I'm sure Spanx, you know what? I'm sure that feels like a more feminine company than Oracle. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I'm pretty sure it probably does. But you know what? She seems really aggressive, man.
Man, I would love to meet her. Holy shit. I'd like to
I
buy her a
know.
case of alcohol.
Wouldn't she? She's amazing. But
Oh, I
I
love
can.
her.
And I
Sarah
just
Blakely.
Sarah Blakely,
Oh,
yes,
I
in
love her.
Atlanta. She's Southern too. She's a huge employer in Atlanta. She's a mini
When
Silicon.
you finally meet her and cuddle up with her, can you let her know,
Okay,
hey, I'm a huge fan and
I
I would love to
will.
buy her
Did
a
you have lunch?
giant pile of alcohol that we could consume together?
She's amazing, but that's a results-oriented company. So I think, like, any successful business. My friends that are the founders of Rent the Runway, they have
What a cool business.
they have world domination on their mind. World dominate. They want to transform how women consume fashion. So again, very feminine. And so I think,
Love to have them on Legends and
oh,
Losers
let's
if you
do
think
it.
they'd join us.
I know
Yeah.
she would. Maureen Sullivan, she's amazing. She was Tim Armstrong's right hand. She actually was Sergey Brin's. She went to Stanford, and she was his chief of staff. So she has incredible.
Yeah, well, I'm sure she's a real loser, eh?
Yeah. She's just, and just had her third kid. It's just ridiculous. But again, they have world domination on their mind. And so I think that it's understanding that it is about the results. I think it is being aware of whether it's more masculine or feminine. I think you have to understand the communication and the norms of a company. And I don't think that's a masculine feminine. I think that's just their Yahoo. I really liked it because it was very casual. Yext is we're a challenging culture, meaning we challenge each other in openly. We want to get to the answers, and we want to debate things. We want to have tough conversations. We won't shy away. There's no passive aggressive. That's tough for people. And I've talked to
It's
Howard that I said
frontal.
it's frontal, and that's not it feels masculine, but look, I'm pretty frontal. I am, and so I fit in on that, right? And then I don't have time. We have too much to do. And so there's always too much to do. There's always so much to do. So let's make decisions and let's get everyone's ideas. That's a Scient thing. I've definitely learned that from Scient. Everyone should have a voice. Get it all on the table. And then I think people support the ideas, but that's a part of the culture. And we talk about this when we interview people. Mike told me this because he said, if you don't want that, don't go to work there because it could be challenging. So I'd say not getting hung up on that. It's like understanding those norms. Maybe they feel more feminine or masculine. And if you're a man going in and more feminine, well, you know what? Maybe you need to be a little more touchy-feely in your emails and not just
No, but
sign up,
that's true.
right?
As a man, you recognize when you're in a more feminine environment, whether it's a business or a
Yeah.
shop that your wife brings you in, or listen to different people's homes.
Mm-hmm.
A home can feel more masculine or more feminine, or sometimes, neither one. But different environments can feel that way, and you try to pick up on those cues, I
And
think.
I think that's the key whether they're all have the headline feminine masculine, they all have differences. And I think that's being a consultant, a reformed consultant, as I like to say, for a long time. You had to learn that because, man, you go into those cultures and you just can't be like doo, 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 doo. You have to try to understand it. We went to every different business every year. Delta Airlines and DuPont and then Holiday Inn. They're so different. So I think that probably is how I have that life skill from being a consultant, because they do groom you there. You've got to conform to the norms of your client, right? We all talked about this in consulting. And so maybe that helps me be more of a chameleon, or be more conscious of it. I think that's probably the advice I'd say is like, be aware of it and try to adjust as much as you can.
And what are you most excited about as you look to the future, Wendy?
Well, I am a true believer in technology. I mean, I really am. I mean, with these green screen, shitty computers in 1985, I still thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? I was like, oh my God. And it wasn't cool. I mean, you look back and it's like, and I
Well, it
learned how
was
to,
cool.
it was
Hey,
cool,
hey,
right?
I have my buddy Tushar got me a authentic refurbed Atari 2600 video game
Oh my
that's
God.
that's here in the Legends
Wow.
and Losers studio, 1981. That shit's cool.
It is. I know my Alex needs to come play with you because he always talks about he had one. I don't know if it was that same model and he remembers so fondly. So I think it's scary. I think to a lot of people, I think it is a challenge that our country needs to face head on about how we're going to get ready for these next technologies. Because the thing that I have learned as a student of the technology advancements and have ridden, I rode the client server wave and the internet and then mobile, right? I mean, I've ridden all those waves.
And Martech and AdTech. I mean, when
Yeah,
you started in those fields,
those were
those
very early.
phrases didn't
Didn't
exist.
exist exactly, and it's going to come whether we like it or not. And if we don't like it, China will absolutely kick our ass in it. There's no question. I think the pace of innovation in the next 10 years, and some of it's scary. I think AI is, look, I'm really interested. I'm fascinated with blockchain. I'm not cryptocurrency, but the blockchain as a general universal ledger. I'm obsessed with cybersecurity. I'm on Georgia Tech's board, and our last big board meeting was all about cybersecurity. It's arguably Georgia Tech and MIT are like the two top cybersecurity CS schools, and our Fort Gordon and Augusta just is hiring. I think this is probably I can share. I mean, it's like talk to you about it. It's like they're hiring 1,200 people in cybersecurity in Augusta, Georgia, because that they were not staffed up and everything that's going on in the world. And so I just think what we have gone through over the last 20 years, and I'm always a student of that. One of my ad tech buddies just joined the blockchain advertising company, and I was like, shit, I got to go see her and like find out what she's thinking.
That's very cool. I'd love
It
to. I'd
is.
love to know what the fuck a blockchain advertising
Uh,
company thinks it is.
is I know
Yeah, I
it's
don't
going to
know
be
what that means. Yeah.
It's going to be. She may not even. They'll go figure it out or try, and she's the kind of right person to help them figure it out. And then I think, for me personally, what I really have loved about Yex is Howard and Brian were a good bit younger than me, and I've learned so much from them. But I mean, they tell me they've learned from me, and as I think about what's next, spending more time with entrepreneurs and helping. I know you've done that. I mean, I love it. They're just fun, and I have a young woman here, Adna, who's 29, who's got a startup called Notch, and I love her to death. She's so smart, and she's such a bulldog. I just got on the phone with an Atlanta kid, who he's amazing. He wanted the founder of Pardot. He wanted to meet him, and he didn't know him, and he was in Atlanta, and he wanted to start a company, and he stalked him at an event, and he met him, and he got him to join his board and invest in his company. And then he had his top VC, I think it's Emergence. He wanted a SaaS, and he went out to the Valley and he got him to invest. And he just is going down the list, every person and thing he has wanted to meet. And I was like, holy shit, he's a Georgia Tech kid. And he's younger, and it was just amazing to hear his story. And, we were talking about how I could help him. I got connected through a tech friend. And so more of that, because I do think we both can attest.
So you're on the Georgia Tech board. Are you on any other company boards?
I'm on a public company board called Student Transportation of America. Mm-hmm.
I gotta believe you get recruited to be on boards and probably public boards like every 15 minutes.
So I don't. It's really interesting, and I've asked myself why. I probably need to do a better job of updating my LinkedIn and everything. It's super interesting. I'm getting a lot of the private, and I will say is a little happy thing that I think I'm seeing of everything that's going on in the Valley. Founders and their VCs are thinking about it earlier than I've normally seen. B and C round, rather than, hey, we think we're probably going to go public in a couple of years, or we do this size. They're doing it earlier, including like this young man. I mean, he's raised 25 million, but he's like, I want a woman, and I want a woman who's had an IPO on my board. So a lot of private, and obviously because of they're not that many people. And yeah, especially in New York on the East Coast, they're just, I don't even know. A handful of companies have gone public in the last 5 years, and
so do you know my new friend Coco Brown by any chance? Athena Alliance?
I don't, but I've heard of the Athena Alliance. I know Sikander at the board list, and I'm on the board list, but I don't get phone calls from it. Not yet.
So I met her through Bruce Cleveland at Wildcat Ventures, who's also been on Legends and Losers, a legendary guy. Anyway, her and I spoke at a Wildcat event a little while ago and had a connection. And her organization focuses on exactly this. So I guess it's on my mind because her and I just had an
Mm-hmm.
extensive conversation about this stuff, and I found it fascinating. And so what Athena does is a whole set of um, programs to help C-level women executives get ready to be on big ass boards, and
Mm-hmm.
then they help big ass boards.
Find
Yeah.
qualified women. I've
So
heard. I need to get on it. The VCs have been really helpful. One of our
yeah,
VC, I won't, he, because they have a portfolio of post IPO and, well, I'll say it, Jules Maltz. Jules is unbelievable. I think he's my personal recruiter at IVP. He is the greatest guy. He, he's the one who introduced me to the guy in Atlanta. I mean, he's really amazing. And look, you need men and women who do that. But I don't know, Christopher, I've wondered if it's because I don't have an MBA. I didn't go to Stanford or Harvard a
it's
lot.
not that.
You don't think
It's
so?
not that. No,
Yeah.
I can guarantee it's not that.
Yeah. And I think my
Because
student transfer.
I don't have any of those things. So
Yeah.
it's not that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting question, but
I asked Coco this, and one of the things she said is that that I'm trying to remember exactly, but that a lot of women in your position are not as high profile as they could be.
well,
I think that's what she said. Now,
I
in
think
your case, that's probably less so.
yeah, but I still have a lot of people. Another one of my new BFFs is Andy Price at Redpoint and Index, and I love that guy, and he's been amazing and really helpful. And when he met me, we had a conversation like this for an hour and a half in Index's offices, and he said, "Holy shit, you're a badass. Why had I never heard of you until because I fell into like a very narrow profile he had for a board seat, which wasn't the right one for me." And so the only reason he's a damn good at what he does, so I hit his like 5 boxes, and he said, you were literally the only woman, and they did want a woman in New York who fit my boxes. But he said, I would never have known about you. And that's something, I mean, probably you could help me with. And I think a lot of it
Well,
is,
and here's the other
I've been
thing
building
that,
a business for 6.5 years.
yeah, exactly. So you're busy. The other interesting thing, so I always thought the ultimate, and we talked about this a lot in the Scient days, was to create a meritocracy. And Coco kind of kicked me in the nuts on this. And here's what she nailed me on, which I just hadn't thought of. And she's fucking right, which is, what's the spec?
Yep.
And so if you design the spec as fucking this, well, guess what? It's, if it's a teeny weeny little spec, the chances are, yes. If you want to say meritocracy against these very specific criteria that by definition, there will be very few, if any, women who meet, then you can sit on your meritocracy sort of chair, asshole, but you got to open the aperture as to what, meritocracy in the context of fucking what. Now, she said it much more nicely than that, but it was,
He's right.
and I thought, you know what? I hadn't thought about it that way. What's the criteria, that is to say the context through which we're evaluating people, and is the, my friend, Professor Tina Selig says, before you brainstorm, framestorm. Because the frame of a dialogue or a question or a debate or an idea, in a lot of ways, of course, matters more than the idea. And so I've just been thinking about this, meritocracy and what the definition, and anyway, it's an interesting topic. You should probably meet Coco. She's a very intriguing leader, and she's a former CEO and entrepreneur herself. I mean, she's got an incredible background.
I'd like to. Well, awesome, Christopher.
Wendy, can I say something corny to you?
You could say anything to me.
I am so fucking proud of you, Wendy Sturgis. Wendy Sturgis. You and I have just been in light touch for the better part of the last 20 years, but I've always been tracking you.
I've always been tracking you too.
And every promotion and every article and list and profile, I just think, wow, there she fucking goes. And I just love you. I think you're awesome. You were awesome then. You're more awesome now. And I'm so happy for your success. Man, am I ever happy for your life.
Thank you. I'm happy, buddy. And that's the good news. I'm happy in all aspects of my life. And that's the biggest blessing. So, and I'm happy for you, buddy. It was fun. Miss you.
Thank you.
We got to drink a boatload of alcohol together sometime.
I'm going to come see you next time I'm in New York.
You better.
Yes, I absolutely are. And we'll get very, very drunk and we'll make bad decisions and it'll be awesome.
All right, buddy.
Wendy, thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Be legendary, my friend.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, wow, wow. What a great pleasure to reconnect with Wendy, and just a joy to have her on the show and to have her back or to be reconnected with her. Now, if you love Wendy as much as I do, why not share this episode with her on social media right now? In addition, if you're a regular listener, you know that my dear friend Heather Clancy and I are working on a new book called Niche Down. It's all about how, as my friend Scott Lowry says, you can design your niche and get nouveau riche. And it's all about how legends become known for having a category niche that they can own. And the difference between Niche Down and my prior book with my co-authors, Play Bigger is about this concept called category design. And Forbes magazine said that Play Bigger was the how-to guide for creating the next Facebook or Google. Well, Niche Down is pointed at a completely different audience. Niche Down is about how you can design your own niche, your own category in your career, your personal life, your career. If you're a solopreneur or you're a small e-entrepreneur, small business owner, small business leader. And so that's what Niche Down's about. If you would like a free teaser to the new book, Niche Down, here's what we'd ask. Write us a review on iTunes or wherever you enjoy podcasts. Take a screenshot of that review and email it to blackhole, all one word, at legendsandlosers.com. And we will email you the new free teaser for the new book coming up a little bit later this year, Niche Down. And if you want, we'd love it if you subscribed on iTunes. And for those of you on Facebook, check us out. We have a great Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/legends-and-losers. All right. We would like to thank Yext, the emerging leader in the digital knowledge management category. Check them out at Yext, YEXT.com. Equity Directory, the invite only for entrepreneurs and startup talent, exchanging work for equity. If you work in the startup ecosystem, you got to be on Equity Directory. Check us out at equitydirectory.com. The smash hit and instant classic from HarperCollins, Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Our good friends at the nonprofit One Life Fully Live. Check us out at onelifefullylive.org, where you can dream, plan, and live your best life. Our good friends in the UK, Positive Marketing, PR, marketing, and category design in London, Europe, and beyond. NetSuite, #1 in cloud ERP. If you are a growing company, NetSuite is the platform for you. Accounting, manufacturing, distribution, e-commerce, and more. Check us out at netsuite.com. If you're planning a trip to Maui, Angel Island Care, professional nannies certified in CPR and first aid, caring for your little angels. And so when it's time for you and your guy or you and your gal to head off and have some adventure, maybe a nice dinner on Maui, and you need someone to take care of your angel, Island Angel Care. Category Design Advisors are good friends, working on category design strategy with senior executive teams to dominate new categories. Check them out at Category Design Advisors. Our good friends at 800 CEO Read. If you're into business books, this is the website for you. Check them out. Don't be a loser. Read something legendary at 800-CEO-read.com. Outposition.com, legendary marketing and category design in Singapore at out-position.com. Pursuingresults.com. They produce legendary podcasts, and they produce this one too. Check them out if you want to get into the podcast game. Pursuingresults.com. Now, if you're an author, you're a thought leader, you're an executive, and you want to get your leading thoughts on leading podcasts, interviewvalet.com. They will get you on the right shows so that you can promote your ideas and share your awesomeness. Check them out. You be the guest. They do the rest. Interviewvalet.com. 1185 Design. There is a reason that the greatest companies with the greatest brands in Silicon Valley show up at 1185 Design. Check them out today. And the Comedy Nest in Montreal. If you love live comedy, this is the #1 comedy club in Montreal, Canada, where you will laugh your poutine off. And our good friends at Doctors Without Borders. You make a donation today, and we make a difference in the toughest places on planet Earth. All right, we must remind you that today's information is provided to you solely for informational purposes, and that this oddcast is clearly produced in a studio that does contain nuts. All rights do remain disturbed. This show is not for wankers, and we also got to warn you, it's highly flammable. Be nice to your mother. Tell 2 people you love about 2 podcasts you love, and don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. Listen to Tom Waits. Hands up, chin down. Support your local category designer. Teach girls science. Watch Spinal Tap. Remember to surf in the nude. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go out to the Chief Executive Officer of Symantec, Greg Clark. Sorry, Greg, we just ran out of time for you. That's it, my friends. Thank you so much for investing part of your life with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Legends and Losers.